So we'll begin with the budget hearing for the school first. You should have your binder. Yes. Can you hear me? Because I can speak louder. So the Orrington School budget revenues, I will start and go through the first page as we typically do for the overall budget, and then we'll go through any significant changes on the line item budgets following. So the very first top section, which shows the anticipated balance of $194,415, the state foundation allocation, which is the $4,115,773, and then your local and additional local right there, which is combined of what you're required to raise and the additional above and beyond. Bring the total gross proposed budget to $8,170,959. That's broken down below as follows. It's an increase of $275,124, or a 3.48% increase from last year. The local appropriation, which is the part that citizens raise in Orrington below it, is $3,860,771. That is $0 above last year. It'll be the 6th year in a row that it's flat or less than it was the year before. No? Below is the state subsidy comparison. We got an additional $130,709 from the state this year, which is an increase of 3.28%. And then state valuation down bottom, we always include, because the two biggest factors are your student count and your state valuation when it comes to state subsidy. Orrington's state valuation was an increase of $11,833,000, or 3.06%. The state was up almost 6%, and that's where we fall in comparison to the state. Before I go through the line item, any questions on that first page? All right. So starting on the second page, on the first page, first section, salary for the nurse versus the benefits. The change there is a new person who is a different year on the seniority scale, as well as taking the additional benefits that the previous nurse did not. Line 22, contract superintendent's office, increase of $36,995. The audit change where we had to recapture the airline revenue, so you'll see the increase there. Line 27, salary secretaries, the increase of $12,000. That's per the agreement. Line 55, SRO contract, you'll see the increase of $130,000. That's a position we haven't had before. That's the school resource officer. Turning the page, line 59, salaries maintenance supervisor and custodians. The maintenance supervisor, that's the change in the audit, going to regular pay versus being stipended out. Benefits custodian, line 64, the drop in $14,000. That again is adjusted based on who is taking benefits or who is not. Line 73, the increase of $14,712. That's the transportation. That's mostly wages, but it's also a little bit of the overhead that goes with that. We are part of the Hancock Collaborative at this point. Line 95, salaries pre-K teachers. You'll see the drop in $31,181. That's a shift in experience to teachers as they've come in. Line 98, benefits pre-K teachers, the drop of $20,000. That's also a change in what they are taking for benefits. Turning the page. Salaries 3-8 teachers, you'll see an increase of $47,215. That's the change in experience as they move up. Line 152, you'll see the increase of $11,000 for benefits and ed techs, and benefits for ed techs. That's a change in the benefits that they take. And then everybody's favorite section, tuition. Line 162, you'll see an increase of $29,271 for public school, You'll see a drop in private school tuition of $173,682. That's as our big classes that went to high school have started to leave. And so you see that curve going down. Even though there's an increase every year in the cost, your numbers are dropping overall. Turning the page, line 188, tuition special education, you'll see an increase of 80,000. That has to do with students that are placed in a special purpose private school and student services at the high schools where we still have to pay beyond tuition for their special education services. Line 197, you're going to see an increase under salaries for special education teachers of 64,111. Part of that is per scale, but we also have a student that requires a one-to-one nurse at this point, and as such, that's where that line is captured. Turning the page, you're going to go down to line 261, salary and benefits for GT. That's because art is now has a half day for gifted and talented students, which is reimbursed at a higher rate. And then line 269 through 271, you're going to see the increase there. We were previously contracting for social work salaries through Northern Lights. They can no longer provide that position, so we've had to hire our own. The difference there is that Northern Lights can bill for insurances that we can't. And so that's the change in the cost structure. And that brings you to the grand total at the bottom of the 275, 124 increase. Any questions on any of those items or anything else related?
What's the current enrollment here at Center Drive? And you said the bulge in the upper high school.
Yep.
Is
starting to fade. Yep.
Has it peaked in sophomore year or junior year?
As far as dropping back down, so our biggest was last year, and now we're starting to see them drop, depending on the class size, anywhere from 18 to 20 students per grade as they exit.
The sophomore class is our last big class.
Right, yeah.
So the freshman class is smaller.
Right.
Sophomore is the bulge.
It's the last one
And
to
the
go.
last of the bulge, yeah.
Yeah.
So
And then total here is 362, sorry.
I remember 415 or so.
We've had 420 when we had the bigger grades in here, about 420, 421. I'd have to go back and pull it.
We're fairly consistent. in
Yep.
numbers. We don't have any classes right now that are,
More than two per grade, right? Other questions? Yeah, Bruce?
Not a question specific to this budget, but just thinking ahead, we'll take a minute. I know there's discussion in Augusta right now, there's legislation pending relative to starting salaries for teachers.
Yep.
How big of a, let's say that moves forward, they pass that. Do you know how big of an impact that would be to a school like this?
But you're talking about the $50,000, correct?
Starting.
Right, starting. So if they move that, depending on when they phase it in, right now our teachers, the starting pay is just a little bit above 40,000. It'll end up being somewhere around 46,000 by the next time the next contract is done. Depends on when that's phased in as to what we have to do to get there, and whether or not they put the fiscal piece in they did last time, where they give you a certain amount of time to get there and they pay the difference. If they don't, I couldn't begin to tell you off the top of my head. I could calculate it, but I mean, if you just did rough math with 25 teachers, they're not all at that pay. But as we start to move it, you're going to see it start to jump.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna move the bottom.
You're going to move the top.
Everybody's gotta push it
Yeah.
because
That's how it
where
works.
would the families be?
Right, right.
Um,
So yeah,
Some possibility the state might actually come up with some funds.
the last 3 times that they've done this minimum piece, they've phased it in over time where they pay the difference. And it's been, one was 3 years, and I think there was one that was 5 years, and I'm not sure where. But I'm not going to tell you they're going to do that, because when it comes through legislation, we'll see whether or not they do. Yeah, absolutely. All right. You're up. Thank you all.
Select board, come on now.
I know.
Yeah, he's good.
So I will say this once again, I thank the school board for delivering a flat ass to the town. It's pretty impressive, pretty amazing that they're able to do that. And I can't think of any other town that enjoys a 6-year run like that. And so it makes my job a lot easier, knowing that a large portion of our budget is flat funded, you know, from what the town is required. So again, thank the school board. The town revenues are presented on our first page. There was a couple things in the excise that I think I went a little heavy-handed last year, so I am dropping that. But the revenue sharing, I did not go far enough, so I've increased that line. On the second page, you will notice Department 510, Fire and Rescue. I've increased their revenue by $125,000. I'd like you to remember that number when we get to their department on the expenses. I'm proposing a flat tax rate, that your bills should remain statistically the same as they were the last couple of years. We went through the board, and I think $26 was the biggest increase in, for what we estimated their taxes will be. The next page is a summary overview of the different articles we'll be voting on in the different departments, and you can see what the budget was last year or the current year we're in and what we are proposing. And then I will go to the next page and talk about each individual department. All the employees were proposed a 4 to 5% raise. And so every line item should be going up approximately 4.5%, 5% for salaries. We did not do many adjustments like we've done in the past, except for the display of these reports. The first two columns are now presented the actuals from 2021 and 22. We've always presented 4 columns of budget numbers. We have actuals from those 2 years, so we presented the actuals from those 2 years. The current year budget 23 is not done, so we can't give the actuals, and the proposed is 2024. Manager's office is a increase of $13,000 in the salary line. Insurance, we've been doing health and safety and getting on a tiered program with our insurance carrier, and our rates are going down because of that paperwork that we've been pushing. Town hall general services is pretty much flat. The next page, technology, pretty much flat. The town officer wages, these are the stipends that the boards receive. There's an increase of $2,000. That's because the cemetery sexton was always budgeted in the Public Works Department. And why, I do not know, but I've moved it to the stipends line. The assessing department, again, wages going up. Code enforcement, I proposed a big adjustment here because I'd like to hire another code enforcement officer. The town is approaching a 4,000 population where the state will mandate our adoption of MUBEC, which is a higher standard and a higher grade of code enforcement. And so we would like to hire someone that is MUBEC certified and would like to switch the town to MUBEC on our terms and not when the state says we have to. That position will come up later where it came from. Economic development, did a little swapping of figures, but the total budget only increased by $3,000. Public Works, you'll see that their wages are actually down. I've stolen one of their positions to be my new code enforcement officer. We had budgeted for 5 and we have not hired the 5th. So the Public Works will stay with they are currently staffed, and that new code enforcement officer, that position is coming from Public Works. Next page. The equipment, Public Works equipment, we bought some big pieces of equipment in the last 2 years, so you'll see a big decrease in the equipment rental. Public Works is tackling more of these projects on their own. The garage, utilities and maintenance is somewhat flat, slight increases. Solid waste is the trash pickup. They have a contractual increase of 3.5%. General assistance, we got through the year sort of unscathed, but I still, have increased that a little bit. Conservation went down because Public Works is now mowing the fields in those conservation areas. Recreation is still happening, same budget with the exception of the Public Works Director. Next page, Department 470, local area contributions. Everything is the same as last year with the addition of one. The Rain and Hope Ranch is a new contribution this year. Department 510, Fire and Rescue. We are studying this for the last 3 years and are figuring out how to budget and how this building and how this department operates. We're proposing a new position, a fire chief, to be full-time. And let me be the first to say, I hope Scott gets the job. But the increase in the fire department is 100,000 from last year, but if you remember, their revenue is increasing by 125. And so they are contributing all of this, if not more of this increase with their additional revenues. Next page, the police department, the sheriff contract is contractual increase. Animal control officer, I've increased this a lot because I would like to improve that position. There's a local gentleman I'm talking to and would like to hire him as the animal control. And I think he will expand that and do a better job with animal control. Department 610, the library, we proposed a modest increase, but the operating hours are going back to normal pre-COVID, and we will be going to Saturday hours. Department 670 capital projects, the only increase was Public Works Equipment Reserve. Public Works Department was down in their total by 15,000, so we decided to add 20,000 to their equipment reserve. And finally, fuel contingency. Last year, we had no idea what the price was going to be in fuel, so we put this line item in specifically for this reason. So the following year, when the fuel prices stabilize, we can get rid of this department. And that is the town's budget. Any questions? 2, 5?
Code enforcement, you're proposing that we get a full-time code enforcement officer. Does that have any positive benefits in terms of insurance? If you have a code officer and we are building things to a higher standard, is there any benefit on the insurance side? Have you, in your past years auditing other towns?
In my experience, the insurance that the town pays will not be affected by that. I think as a homeowner, your insurance might, see that benefit, that it was a move back and certified, built to these standards house. But as far as the town goes, I don't see any insurance savings.
Do you have any feel for what the cost may be to achieve UVAC standards? I heard some contractors comment that, they're quite onerous, based on the German standards, and
Yeah.
that they can be very costly for new construction or changes.
I know the permitting process will get more expensive because there's 8 mandatory inspections that have to happen on a residential. But the standards are increased. Their energy efficiency is what they're leaning for. There's pretty much a lot of leeway in what you can and can't do in that move back. So I think they're better standards. I've talked to several contractors and they love it. They want to get rid of the wild, wild west, as they called it here in town, to have these inspections, have these, oversight.
I know some towns have what are considered pretty exorbitant permitting costs. Have you looked at what potential permitting costs might be and how they compare to others?
I haven't really looked at that. I know our permitting costs will increase significantly, but I think our permitting costs are, very much deflated and depressed. Is that it? Well, I call this budget hearing closed. Thanks for coming.
Congratulations, sir. Good budget.